Essensei. With Armunn Righ and SaYo.
So I have this friend who seems to be living a very happy life. Things are working, things are happening for him, and then he sees synchronicities and those things, and then he doesn't, although he doesn't know the fakeries of the world, his life seems to be working as so he would eventually experience some sort of a calamity or something.
No, not necessarily. No bliss lasts forever in the same way that no pain lasts forever.
Okay.
And he may be living in accordance to his organic self, in accordance to his authority, to his ego, without knowing that he is. There's a difference between walking the path and knowing the path. There's a difference between doing what is, yours to do and knowing what you are to do. Because rationally knowing is only accessible to the mental character, right?
So it doesn't really matter to know.
It helps. It helps because it gives the mental character a layout of the mechanics of things, right? And the mental character is then aware of what is going on.
Yeah.
But you can live unawares and still be in contact with the ego and still make the decisions in accordance to your ego authority and still live, closer to who you are supposed to be, let's say. So that is absolutely possible. Now, if you ask me if his bliss will last forever, I say no, because nothing lasts forever. There are ups and downs in life. There are high tides, low tides, summer, winter, Nothing lasts forever. This will not be a permanent state.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that, for example, imagining, I don't know your friend, and you don't know his actual condition either, but imagining that he is following his ego authority without knowing that he is. That is perfectly possible. We don't need to know. Right?
So it doesn't matter you have so many of the false memories in the memory room. Usually we decide our action sort of based on the beliefs, right, that we have. So even with those there, and then...
Well, but your friend did say in the email he wrote to you, as you told me, that you helped him change his perspective in the sense of you broke the automatism that he was going on about life with, right? So he apparently, from what he said, he was going on automatic, and you introduced him a new way of seeing things, and that new way of seeing things made him experiment, and with that experiment he's been getting good results in the sense of being comfortable, being well, etc. This might mean that that automatism that you're talking about, which means the behaviors are all dictated by the false memories, may have been broken. And that alone is already a big step, right?
That maybe, so I introduced to him the concept of you create your own reality. So what basically I explained to him was that in a way they are taking responsibility for what's happening in your life. So even the things that you feel like somebody did it to you, or you don't have any contribution to it, but somebody did to you, or I think maybe he got to that responsibility part. He sees everything.
Well, just the fact that he stopped being a victim, in the sense of, the world did this to me, right? And already is a big step towards listening to his authority. It doesn't mean that he is aware of the ego. It doesn't mean that he knows or can or has to know about the structure of the psyche. He doesn't need to know. I mean, I can move my arm, and I don't know necessarily how the muscles and the bones and etc. in my arm function, but I move my arm anyway, right? It's a second nature or a first nature to me to move the arm, right? So in his case, I mean, you just told him in a metaphorical way, hey, they don't, the world doesn't have to move the arm for you. You can actually move the arm yourself, right? But he doesn't know how the arm works. He doesn't need to know how the arm works, right? How the muscles are composed and they interact. So there is really a difference, because understand one thing, only mental characters need to know in a sense of, rationally cataloging things, putting schematics, of course, even I and you do that, right? Yeah. We need this because we need to make some sense of something that didn't make sense before. I mean, we both went through situations where life stopped making sense. Right? We looked at life, we looked at the world, and something doesn't make sense. So as we find that out, we put into schematics, we put into concepts, into even words. And I'm the first to say truth speaks no words. Right? But we do put it into that to help us make some sense. But understand that this path is not for everyone. In fact, it is for I would say, very small number of people. Only a very small number of people will have mental characters that are able to look at the world and still remaining mental characters. So not dissolving and going into, I don't know, some sort of pathology, mental pathology. Look at the world, see that it is a fake, that it is composed of fakery, in the social sense, in the human sense, and still continue to be able to function. Not many people are able to do that. Most would either break down or you reject outright because it would destroy their world, etc., etc. Does that mean that those people cannot live their organic selves? No. It means that for them to live their organic selves, it's not necessary to know. It is necessary only to establish that connection with their ego, and the ego becoming the decision center, becoming the observer, the actual observer, and the reevaluation of the false memories. But they don't need to know the process. When you cut your skin, you don't know how the skin regenerates. You don't know exactly. I mean, yes, science comes up with all this and that and the other. Yeah, right. It's like DNA. How is a baby formed? You know that it begins with a small cell or whatever. Even the concept of cell is put into question. But anyway, it begins with a small thing, and 9 months later, it's a fully formed baby. With that even resembles, hopefully, their parents, right? So, do you know how that is formed? No, but science comes up and fills up the blanks, right? Oh, it's DNA, it's this and that and the other. Most of those explanations, like DNA, is like quantum physics.
Yeah, I realized that. But I mean, when I was subscribing to the idea of you create your own reality, that was really important for me in the sense that I started taking responsibilities of what's happening in my life, even the negative things or even the things that I didn't have any control over. because of something in me attracted the situation. That's what I was trying to understand. But for me, that wasn't enough in a way. I don't know. And then for me, it was really important to understand the fakeries of the world. But you say that's not
it's a small group. It means that you, of course, and I already know that, but you belong to a small group, let's say, a small percentage of people that want that need that actually seek that. But not everybody does. Not everybody is supposed to or is equipped to. They would go crazy. They would actually literally go crazy. It would mean a breakdown of the actual mental character, and the mind would stop functioning altogether. So for them, and I'm not saying that this is the case of your friend, I don't know him, okay? Because it may be that your friend will come to reveal himself as one of the people that actually needs to know. But even if it isn't that case, people can still approach their egos, approach their organic selves without knowing how it works, without knowing that they're lied to all the time. You know, in 2020, people could have, still believe in, diseases in the way that they're explained, and particles that create diseases in that sense, and so on and so forth, and be faced with what happened and still say, hey, I think this is an exaggeration. I'm not going to follow these rules. I think this is stupid. I'm going to ignore this covering thing and ignore this pricking thing that they asked me to do, and so on and so forth. And you didn't even look into anything of that. So you didn't even need to explore that situation. And who would tell someone like that that it's a bad idea? It would be the ego. So that it means that individual is connected to the ego, and the ego discerns, this is stupid, this is good. And so I'm going to make a decision here, right?
So then, I mean, there seem to be people, like you say, that who don't know what's going on in the world, but nevertheless seems like having some connection to the ego. I mean, I'm talking about, for example, my mom, like I told you. But, she went along with 2020 thing most fully. But still, she seems to have certain, how can I say, approach to life that worked for her. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how to explain, but, she seems to understand that, for example, I don't think she necessarily is afraid of death, for example, in a way that other people are. Or she accepts the unfortunate things happening in life, is very different from what other people are. It's like there are other people who are like, how could this happen to me? And become sort of a victim, right?
Yeah.